Your government and your army have completely dismissed India's version of what happened along the line of control yesterday, outright calling it propaganda. Can I ask you why India would want to do something like this over the bodies of its own soldiers? Why would India need to do propaganda like this?
Well, let me first of all say that it is very important that this ceasefire along the LOC, which has been in place since 2003, that it be respected. I think there are certain important achievements between Pakistan and India in this domain. For instance, we have mechanisms, established mechanisms, to ensure that this happens. And whenever there has been an issue, I think it has been our desire to work those mechanisms. Everything needs to be seen in perspective. On 6 January, a Pakistani post in the Haji Pir Pass sector was attacked while inside our side, which led to casualties. One of our soldiers was martyred, several were injured. And we established the mechanisms, we followed the mechanisms, the established mechanisms, in communicating our concerns to the Indian side, both at the military and at the diplomatic levels. So I think on this particular, the Mendhar incident, as it's being called, there were preliminary inquiries that were conducted by the Pakistan military, and it was established that at no point in time did any of the Pakistani troops cross the LOC, and that is what has been given out by the government in official statements.
But that brings me to my question, Mr. Bashir, that to call it propaganda on the Indian side, why would India do that kind of propaganda? I mean, these are the bodies of 2 Indian soldiers. Why would India need to do that? India has been as much invested in this peace process as Pakistan has. So why call it propaganda?
I think what is meant by it is that instead of getting into a frenetic mode whereby, we put everything on fire through the media, it is important to exercise utmost restraint and not indulge in mutual recrimination. I think that is what is meant here. And as far as why would this happen, there is a tendency, don't say at the level of governments, but we have seen this in the past and we see it in the present, to reach conclusions or to sort of whip up the sentiments, which is not really desirable.
Are you making that accusation against the Indian army? Are you saying they are the one who they indulge in whipping up sentiments?
I am not making any accusation against the Indian army or the Indian government. I agree with you that not only the Indian government but also the Pakistani government has invested a lot of effort, energy in moving towards better relations between the 2 countries. What I'm saying is that it is important that we are able to handle any concerns in a manner that does not vitiate the atmosphere, which unfortunately has happened over the last 24 hours, especially in the domain of media.
But sir, should Pakistan be completely dismissive of the Indian allegations? I know you said that the Pakistani army, and the army has also issued a statement there saying that based on their own preliminary inquiry, Pakistani soldiers did not cross into this side. But doesn't this need a much more serious, in-depth inquiry? Doesn't this need to be looked at much more seriously?
I think we have said this, and we have also said that we are prepared to ask the United Nations Military Observers Group to come in and to inquire. And I think that point has been made. We are open to that, a UN investigation into this. Or, in fact, I think the UN MOGIP has a role in preventing and in investigating any violations of the ceasefire line.
Are you saying, is Pakistan saying that India has lied about your troops crossing over to this side? Because that's what it effectively amounts to.
You see, I don't want to get into this, but I really...
Because when you say that it's propaganda, when the military says that in its statement, when the Foreign Ministry of Pakistan says it's propaganda, it's in effect saying that India's lying. So if that's what you're saying, is that what it is?
I cannot say that what has been said officially. What I had a conversation this morning at the Ministry of External Affairs. I think some of the elements that are important, on which we have agreed, are that it is important for both sides to respect the ceasefire along the line of control, that the existing mechanisms should be used, and I think it's important to de-escalate. So I don't want to get into this argument about who's lying or who's not lying.
Sure, but I think the problem is that when the Indian allegation is dismissed within 24 hours as being propaganda, then how do we take this forward? Without, and you're saying on one hand you're ready for a UN inquiry, on the other hand the Pakistani government says this is Indian propaganda, which in other words means, we're lying.
If you're referring to the Foreign Ministry statement, I think nearly every statement that has been issued after the official talks, and it has been mentioned in these talks that both sides need to avoid hostile propaganda. I think you ought to see that in that particular light.
But there was also Mr. Salman Khurshid, the Indian External Affairs Minister, who's not known for hyperbole. He said today he said what you're saying, that we must not let this escalate, and we cannot let this escalate. But he also said that this could have an adverse impact on what we've been trying to achieve for so long, which is the peace process. How do you react to that, a statement coming from someone like Mr. Khurshid?
No, I think basically any such thing, any violation of the ceasefire could have an adverse impact. And therefore, the more important point here is that we ensure that these things do not happen. I think that is clearly the intent at all levels, be it the leadership, the governments, or the militaries. And that's why I'm saying that we ought to use the mechanisms that exist and ensure that these violations do not take place.
Is it Pakistan's position, Mr. Bashir, that the only inquiry that you're ready for is a UN inquiry, or would Pakistan be willing to have another internal inquiry into what happened in Mendhar, a more high-level inquiry, a judicial probe?
As we have said, Pakistan forces did not cross the LOC.
But then why are you asking for an inquiry? Why are you ready for an inquiry if you made up your mind that the troops didn't cross over?
No, I mean, we were asked to investigate. What we have said is that we have, since yesterday, actually done that and established that Pakistani forces did not cross the LOC. I think it's as simple as that. And if this is not acceptable, then what other avenue? I mean, of course, there is a UN mandatory group that can be brought in.